actually to be stood up here because I've just been sat down for an hour and a half and it's kind of nice to stretch the legs. So if anyone feels like they'd just like to have a stand and stretch their legs while I get started, that's fine by me. My name's Emily Heath. I'm gradualist on Twitter, and I'm a wizard. Okay, maybe I'm not actually a wizard, but I am a senior user experience architect at BBC. I work in Media City in Salford. This is our very snazzy office, and those round things that kind of look to me a bit like headphones when I first started, there are thought bubbles, a slightly pretentious name I guess the architect gave them. And they're kind of there for like small one-to-one meetings, that kind of thing. But they're actually really uncomfortable and they're not great for meetings. But they are great to get away from your desk and do some thinking. And we do a lot of thinking at the BBC, UX architects in particular. And I've personally been thinking a lot about cards. In fact, I've been thinking rather too much about cards, so much so that I've ended up thinking up all these like really cheesy honey metaphors for titles for the talks that I might give people on cards. So we might be unpacking cards, or hey, just for you information architects, I could be titling it something to do with card sorting. But actually I'm not. I'm just going for something plain and simple, because what I'm talking about today is cards for discovery. Now, it seems like a few of you know what cards are already, but I don't think many people do, and even when you do, everyone kind of has a different idea of what cards are. So I'm going to start on the cards bit, and we'll come back to why cards are good for discovery later. So cards. Cards are kind of everywhere. You've already seen them around, but you may not have kind of realised or given them that name. I've been trying to kind of look across the whole breadth of the use of cards right now and come up with a definition for them. I'm going to talk you through that today. So, a card is it's a piece of micro-content. It's portable, and it should be presented in a consistent and recognisable format. They kind of can look a bit like promos, and there's often a little bit of kind of preview content in there. So let's give you some examples. We've got your boarding pass app that you might use if you've got an iPhone. Just something really easy to, at a glance, take a look at. You can kind of carry it around with you. You can do a search for a supermarket. It's Sunday, is anywhere open? And up pops this little bit of information that gives you the opening times, which is just what you need. So it's really handy. And then there's a dating app where it's like a stack of photographs that you can just kind of swipe through, get a good quick glance at who these people are and whether you might want to meet them. There's the kind of bookmarking, Pinterest kind of apps where you save a web page, but it pulls in the information from that web page that will make you remember it, and maybe the point of why you're saving it. There's the Twitter cards, so like embedded content in Twitter, so the YouTube, embedded YouTube in a tweet. And then there's notification cards that might pop up like on your home screen of your phone that actually are providing you with a bit of a service and a quick way to get to action on a notification. So just back to that definition again. A card is a piece of micro-content, it's portable, and it's presented in a consistent and recognisable way. So let's go a little bit more into the presentation format. The whole point with the presentation format is it's using the metaphor of a physical card. It's like a business card, or a playing card, or a trumps card. Why using that format because they're easy to scan. This is Office 365's Delve, which is like this new interface to kind of finding applications. You can kind of scan over it and see the relevant kind of metadata about the document that you're looking for. They're tactile and recognisable, so they're familiar. They're not that different from promos, but you can kind of get a sense that you can pick them up or you can save them with this collaboration tool on the right, Trello, where you can kind of drag items from one column to another, so they really have this feel that you can pick up like a physical card. They're easy to flip through. So this Tinder, this dating app again, you can kind of just swipe with a thumb back and forth, and that actually says your preference for the person at the same time. So they're really easy to move through. And they can be saved or shared. So that's kind of what I'm getting at with that portability thing. You can kind of take it with you, or you can give it to somebody else. And yeah, like everything on the internet can be saved and shared, but the card presentation format is about putting that kind of function right in the foreground, so you don't miss it. There you can go, you can heart that property, or you can pin that photo to your own Pinterest board. So that kind of sums up the presentation format. If you're still thinking, but aren't they just a bit like pretty promos? I think there's another crucial thing about cards, and that is that they're also a platform. So cards don't just serve up like first-party content, they're also serving up third-party content. Like an example of that I've already given of the YouTube video embedded in Twitter, but also you've got signing up to a newsletter right from within your tweet. And then also Google search cards, they pull in not just one third-party content, but multiple. So they pull in Wikipedia content, they pull in user-generated photos, they pull in links from their own search. So it's the fact that you can put together more than one third-party piece of content into this card. So it becomes this kind of service. And then there's the card, kind of Google Now card, where you can, at the end of the day, it will pop up and tell you how to get home, what the transport's like, and it's pulling in this data from various places. And it's putting it right there in kind of when you need it, in the context you need it, without you having to dig around for it. So they're kind of a mashup of many things rather than just this one-to-one thing. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about cards later, but what I want to go into now is why we're talking about, why we're thinking about cards at the BBC, and in particular why we think they'll be good for discovery. So I work in the content discovery team at the BBC. What the hell is that? You're probably wondering. Well, we're organised by products. So we've got our kind of verticals of news and sport, TV and iPlayer, radio and music, knowledge and learning, and children's, little bits wobbly. And the content discovery team is kind of the horizontal team that sits above all of that. So we're taking care of search and homepage, apps, and this thing we're playing around with the idea of these footer cards. And those are all about kind of horizontal journeys, getting people into those products and helping people move around between those products. So that's where I work in the content discovery team, kind of joining up all those verticals. And we recently did some kind of massive guesstimate, basically, on how much content is actually being kind of published every day. And it was guessed that about 2,000 pieces of content are published every day. And that doesn't mean we're not making that many TV programs, so don't worry, we're not totally misspending our license fee. But everything that we make, like every program we make, gets chopped up into little clips, like multiple clips. So when you add up all the little clips that get made, plus all the kind of news stories and the programs themselves and the sports stories and so on, there's kind of a lot of content being produced every day. And we've got to help people find that content. So that's where the homepage and search and apps on your devices are positioned to kind of drive traffic into our core products. And then we've got this idea of how can we move people around, and we're thinking about this kind of calling out cards feature right now, but it's probably just this format of cards that can be used across the products. And that will help people move around between these products. So this is the problem we're facing at the BBC, but I think this is the problem that we're all facing as information architects. We all want lateral journeys from other sites. I think that's what drew me to information architecture, is this idea of replacing the ladders to get up the library stacks with ropes, so you can kind of move around fluidly and naturally and find the things that you're looking for. Time for a lovely data visualization. Isn't it pretty? So this is a data visualization made just recently by our marketing and audiences team. And they were looking at this very problem that we're having. So each of the kind of petals in this diagram, they represent the different products. So red is like news, pink is iPlayer, orange is knowledge and learning. And what they're showing is the links within that product. So the size of the petal shows all those links. We do really well at helping people move around within the products. Everyone, lots of the users I meet in testing kind of have an idea of what the BBC website is, and it's often just a colour. It's the red website or the yellow website. If you change it or you show them a wireframe, they just wouldn't know what they're looking at. They don't recognise it. So they're very comfortable within their products. What you'll see from this diagram, what you can't see actually, is some very, very faint grey lines in between these products. And that's the links that we've got going in between each of these products. There's really not very many of them, and they're really faint. And we need to join those up better. So we want it to be kind of more of a circle rather than this carefully defined flower. So what we're looking to do is find a kind of a format that could join up all these quite different looking sites. So just talking about the colours of the site, there's the red site, the yellow site, the pink, grey website. You'll see that they all look actually quite different. I mean, hopefully the brand of the BBC comes across, but they're all quite different looking. And so what we're looking to find is some kind of content format that can help people traverse across these sites, that they kind of won't jump out, kind of fit in, but kind of stand out at the same time. So at the moment we've got related content like this, which is taking people around within a particular section of the site. Like I said, we're doing this well. This is this module here keeps people moving around within the videos within news. Works really well. But what we're not doing is joining up news with the iPlayer. So just last week we had a news story about NASA revealing the far side of the moon, and we had an iPlayer program from 1960 about the moon available on the iPlayer at the same time, but they weren't linked. So it's these kind of examples where we want to be improving things. We've been online since 1997, so you think, yeah, you've been doing it a long time, haven't you sorted this by now? but we've got a lot of technical debt and a multitude of content management systems and kind of siloed product teams, and it's UX and the UX and design departments kind of job to join that up, and the content discovery team is kind of core in that mission. So going back to cards for discovery, I'd like to talk now about the kind of three core parts of this card format that I think make it an effective design pattern. So it would allow us to kind of have a single currency for cross-product journeys. This is a Mona Lisa lunchbox. I like this as a metaphor for my 3 points because the Mona Lisa is really familiar to everyone. And it's a lunchbox, right? You can take it with you. It's portable. And it's snackable. It's your lunchbox. You've got your snacks in there for the day. These three things I'll go through in detail are the kind of characteristics of a card that I think can make it really good for discovery across products. So familiarity. There's been some research on how our brains process information that's concluded that the easier and more familiar something looks, the more likely we are to choose it. It's like the path of least resistance, which is obvious. We obviously don't want to kind of wade through long forms or read headlines that are difficult or we don't understand or too long. But I think what's really interesting about this research is that it's not that it's easy, it's why it's easy is because it's familiar, but you don't realise necessarily that it is familiar. So in this study, the researchers asked participants to choose from a big stack of faces, collection of faces, choose the most appealing face. So I'd like to play this, run this test with you here now today. So I'm going to show you 5 faces, and I want you to pick out what you think is the prettiest or the most attractive face out of these 5 faces. Okay, everyone decided? I would like to take a guess that this one is the one you picked. Anyone want to agree with me?
I know, but so.
The reason in the study that everyone picked this particular face is because that particular face is actually just an amalgamation of the other faces. So the face that people picked wasn't even a real person. It was just, it had all the characteristics of the other faces. It somehow looked familiar, and that kind of jumps in makes a skip in your head where you think, oh yeah, they're really attractive. Aren't they pretty? But actually, it's just this familiarity. It's like maybe you know them from somewhere. I think that's why I like celebrities, when we get hung up on celebrities, because we're so used to seeing their face everywhere. We feel like we know them or we think they're attractive just because we're used to seeing them around. That's where also the term kind of beauty is averageness comes from. This kind of, you've got average features and that makes you attractive, not actually because you're unique or stunning. And this goes back to the Mona Lisa as well, right? They say that they're not sure she was a real person, but just this amalgamation of kind of average features. So those average features make it easy to process. It's like, oh yeah, the familiarity makes it easy and makes us feel good, so we'll pick that. So this is called cognitive fluency or processing fluency. And I think this is really important in kind of everything we design, but particularly if we're thinking about showing somebody something new in terms of a discovery journey, but we kind of want them to feel like they know it already and they want to follow it. And it's not only, the study wasn't only done on faces, they also found that people would buy stocks with easy to understand names. So like, who isn't going to like buy Joy if you're new to buying stocks, right? What a great name. Okay, I understand that. It's a lot better than BRCM. This was also found with like familiar names, so when people have a name that's kind of easy to pronounce, they feel like, I don't know how this applies to this kind of job interviews and so on, but they found that people would feel like, oh yeah, okay, I'm more comfortable with you, or with choosing somebody with a name they can pronounce. It's also true of advertising. This is kind of like the golden rule of advertising, is just get your brand in front of people. I think it was as long as they've seen it 7 times, they will start to trust your brand. And when you trust something, you choose it, you buy it. That's how advertising works. Okay, did someone leave the dog outside? Okay, so I think this is why Twitter is so successful for, not just for Twitter themselves, but for the brands that use it, because it's this recognizable format. Like, stick your content in somebody's Twitter stream, and it's like, oh yeah, I know how this works. I know where the picture's going to appear, I know where the link's going to appear, or I recognize that font. So they're kind of using the brand recognizability of Twitter for their own purposes. So that's kind of what we want to do as well, create this kind of format that we could be sharing around BBC to make our audience fluent in the language of discovery. Make it look easy and they'll follow. So portability, the lunchbox that we can carry around, or the container that can go anywhere. I use this image not to make you think of cheap goods from China. We are talking about quality here, but it's the efficiency of the intermodal transport system, which is what the container is. That's great, and for the BBC, one of our values, it's written on the back of our badges, it's delivering value for money. So this is really important with cards. And it'll be important for you and your clients too, I'm sure. So the container was designed so that you could transport goods across various modes of transport. So from trucks, onto trains, onto ships, without the need for reloading, right? So it's faster and it's more efficient. For us, for cards, that means no reformatting when you want to take content from one place to another, when you want to move it from one product to another, or when you want to share it out with kind of third parties and out in your social network. So to do this more efficiently, we need to standardize the format of it and standardize sizes. So that Twitter example again, but also Facebook, they've already been doing this. I don't know if we've really been calling these cards. The kind of presentation format isn't quite there in these examples, but you can seamlessly share your actual content on these platforms. Snackability. It's a nice segue from the portability because the container is kind of repurposing. But this container's a snack bar in Madrid train station. So the reason snackability is good for cards is that people want to consume things on the go. So everyone's always on their way somewhere, always in a hurry. We don't want to have to stop and go into a shop. We just want to kind of breeze by, pick something up along the way. Even better, give us a taste of it. Don't make me pay for anything. Just give me a taste right now so I can decide if I like it. Maybe I'll come back later. Maybe I'll tell my friends how nice it was. So the image on the right is Storify, which is a way of kind of amalgamating tweets and content from other sources, this being SoundCloud. So you can post the link to a track on Storify and you can play the track in place, so you can get a taste of it right there. You don't want to have to download or sign up to SoundCloud necessarily to try this. You just want to kind of have a taste and decide if you want to sign up later. So, familiar, portable and snackable, our Mona Lisa lunchbox. How do we go about doing this? At the BBC, we have a Global Experience Language, or GEL, which you might have already heard about, but it's basically our kind of collecting design patterns. And the card pattern is something we're looking to kind of put into our Global Experience Language, something that can be used across all the products. To do this, to create that pattern, we need to do a systems audit in order to know what are all our modes of transport out there that we're going to need to move these cards across. And what is the data structure of each of all the content that we might want to put into these cards? And how can we kind of make alignment with that? How can we find consistency both in the data, but also so that we, on the front end, so the code that we put out is consistent. And then we also need to work with content strategy and work with our editorial teams to come up with, to kind of make them understand that snackability, how important that is, because I think we find that our editors are really used to doing the promo, and they're not thinking so much about, give something more right now. Let me have a taste of it, so maybe not just the teaser, actually give me some of this content right now. And we have some great content at the BBC. So don't show us a picture of a sandwich, give us a canapé. Just to close up, I've got some examples of some of the actual kind of ideas that we're throwing out there. It's very early days, this isn't something you can go and find on the BBC website today, but we're working kind of across all the products to just try and find those commonalities and what we'd like to do with this format. So we've got everyone kind of just submitting ideas, and at the moment, you know, still in their own kind of product look and feel, their own brand of what kind of content they might want to show. And then I've been going through and trying to find, like, okay, what are the common elements in all of these things? What could be the kind of core minimum viable card format that we could start to use that we would then build on? And we were even looking at, like, what's the kind of skin for that, how might that look? So it kind of ends up having to, like, what we propose be quite generic, but then it will be able to kind of pick up the look and feel of all the different products. There's a nice side effect actually for our developers too, because it speeds things up for them. So if we can put in not just the design pattern to make things quicker for our designers, make it easier for our users, but also for developers, so they're not kind of having to redo the development and coding each time. So just to go back to that definition, a card is a piece of micro content which is snackable and portable. Ooh. And it's great for discovery. Just to go back to that. Presented in a consistent and recognisable format, so that's that familiarity. And that's what makes it good for discovery. Thank you.